Good evening. Welcome to our joint meeting tonight. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Steele if she'll call the roll of the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Gibson? Here. Dr. Orth? Mr. Hutson? Okay. You okay?
He's here.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Here.
Mr. Bazzani? And Mr. Nicosia? Here. You have a quorum.
All right. And Ms. Brazil, can you please pull the board? Mr. Drew?
Yep.
Ms. Parker?
Here.
Mr. Andersen?
Here.
Ms. Saulman? Ms. Scruggs?
Here.
Mr. Brewer?
Here.
Ms. Arsenovic?
Here. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we're going to have our invocation of Mr. Nicosia. As we stand, please.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to meet as joint board, God, to discuss the business of the county. God, I ask that you be with us, that you walk with us, and you go with us as we make the decisions that best suit the county and the children of our school division. We thank you for who you are. We thank you for who you've been, and we thank you for who you will always be. In your name, amen.
All right, and now it's my privilege, if you just remain standing for the pledge, I'd like to introduce tonight our pledge leader, Evelyn Hall. Evelyn Hall is a fourth grade student at Achilles Elementary. She is the oldest of 4 siblings. Evelyn's favorite subject is reading. All right, Evelyn. What she loves about Achilles are all the great friends she has and how she continues to become a better student year after year. She loves spending time with her family and doing arts and crafts in her spare time. She also rides horses several times a week. So Miss Evelyn will lead the pledge.
Please rise and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Evelyn. Beautiful.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Nicosia, and thank you, Evelyn. Okay, can we get a motion to adopt our agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second, all in favor? Approval of the consent agenda,
So moved. Second.
all in favor? Are there any matters presented by the Board of Supervisors? No matters presented by the Board of Supervisors.
Are there any matters presented by the school board? Any members here? All right, thank you.
Okay, County Administrator, item.
I'm going to pass tonight. Got to keep you on your toes.
All right,
No, I
then we'll
didn't.
move on to Dr. Vladu, Superintendent. Any items tonight?
Good evening, everyone. I do not have any items.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our public comment period, limited to the topics on the work session agenda only. Are there any public comments? Okay. No public comments, and we'll move on to our work session agenda. Under number A, we'll have our Gloucester County Public School enrollment update, September 30th, ADM, by Dr. Vladu.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith, Ms. Arsenovic, Mr. Chriscoe, Ms. Parker, Ms. Steele. Thank you for the opportunity to share some information about our school district, particularly as it relates to enrollment. I'll start with this. Why is enrollment important? It's because it's how we get funded. And it's also important to measure this as we serve the school, our students in a public school setting, which we believe is the best place to educate students in Gloucester County. So I'll start with some numbers. As we look at enrollment numbers, our goal for this year, which was calculated by the Cooper Center and the Virginia Department of Education, was 4,700. And as we counted enrollment through the first 10 days and the September 30th report, we recognized that we were down 82 students from the expectation of 4,700. Now, it's important to recognize on this chart that while the blue bars represent last year, for both FY25, which is 4763. We expected a minor or 63 less students, but in addition to that, again, we had 82. But I want you to focus, if you get a chance, on the red area, which is the 65 non-funded students last year and the 85. Why is that important? When we have students in regional programs, special education, placements such as Rivermont, Gateway, or students, for instance, that are attending NJROTC from Matthews, well, those organizations may claim the ADM. And sometimes when it comes to special education, those students are actually more costly to educate. So that's important because, again, we are required to educate those students. And you should have your packets with this information. I know we provided it to the board. I think some of you already have it up there as we look at it. So I'll go to the second slide. So as you're looking at grade level, you'll notice that in kindergarten, we actually stay the same. But there's small variations across those grade levels as we look at last year as compared to this year. And these are funded students, so it excludes those 82 students which I showed you on the previous chart. I want to take a moment to share with you some trends which I shared with you at the last meeting. In FY19, looking at home instruction, which is growing in Gloucester County, but it's also growing across the nation, we had a total of 394 students. We bumped in FY21, if you're looking at blue representing home instruction and green representing religious exemptions, to 635, and that was during the pandemic. We came back down in FY22 and 23 as schools opened, but beginning in FY24, 25, and 26, we see some gains that brings us back to the same levels or close levels to FY21. But you'll notice that religious exemptions have stayed relatively the same. So we're monitoring these numbers. Now, another area to look at as we dug into these numbers, there are 97 students which are coded as homeschooling, which are actually in accredited online schools. So you're thinking about Penn Foster, Acellus, and many, many others that are listed. So those students are enrolled in again, private online schools. The majority of our students that are homeschools are parent-led, degreed, or teacher-led, and that's 443. 29 are in online curriculum providers, 6 are coded in faith-based co-ops, and 3 in other placements. So that gives us some indication in what the parents are looking for. Particularly, that was extremely informative that the online school is a pretty high number, and we have been coding those students at homeschool, which we are allowed to by law, and we are following that. But it's interesting to look at, particularly if we try to recapture some of those students and provide similar services, because that would be a bump in our enrollment if we look at how to capture some of those students back. And I know I presented quite a bit of information. At this time, if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, I'll open it up to those comments.
Do you follow these online students or students that are not present? Do they eventually come back to the school or stay pretty much in the category you've described?
Both. There are a number of students who are transient. For instance, they'll go in first and second grade and then leave for a couple of years, go homeschooling, come back. Those are probably the most difficult to capture because while they're time, we cannot speak to the learning loss that may or may not happen, particularly in some of those programs that don't have criteria, SOL standards, the curriculum. So we do have a high number of students that are actually transient. They come in and out of homeschooling.
Dr. Vladu, this does not include any students that go out temporarily for medical or anything?
No, ma'am. We, for instance, parents, this is good information for parents. It's a great question. So if I'm a parent, unless I have my child who needs to get routine medical help, or they may be out for 2 or 3 months, we will classify those as homebound and provide those services to them. And those students are not included in these numbers because we do capture their enrollment.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have a question?
I have a question quickly. When students do go homeschool, we do have, there is still work on our end. I mean, we have to make sure that they are, again, receiving instruction one way or the other, whether it's from their parent or accredited online school or whatever. I mean, we detract that because they do have to provide evidence of growth. So there is work on our end still to monitor how, homeschooling is going.
So following up on that, do we know or can you follow what happens to these students when they graduate from high school? Is there a proportion that goes to college or trade school or what? Or is that something that you can't track? I know in the high school you know how many students go to college and then do other things, but can we follow those students?
I think that's a great question. Ideally, we should know how successful these programs are because you hit a great point. These are members of our community that may decide to live here, earn jobs, what qualifications do they have. Unfortunately, we do not follow them because, one, they're going to homeschooling. It's really that what they're saying to us, we're on our own. But I am interested to know, how successful are these programs, just like you are, because we would rather educate them in our schools, provide them with a technical skill, some sort of certification to earn a living and an education to be competitive out there. But I can't speak to those students. But to Ms. Arsenovic's point, that's a great point. It takes a tremendous amount of work. Every single child has to produce evidence of progress that's not, with the exception of religious exemption. And with that, we have, there may be a norm reference test, and then we have to look at how much, if any, progress they're making. So that is a lot of work on our staff. These numbers have strained our staff, particularly our Student Services Department, in keeping up with these requests. And I thank you for making that point because I see that every day on the faces of our staff in Student Services.
Mr. Drew?
Yes, I think one of the most important questions we could ask is why? Why are these students being homeschooled? I can tell you that I've talked to parents that are homeschoolers, and most of them is the environment and the cultures at the school. A lot of them are the horror stories of yesteryear, if you will. A lot of them were homeschooled, or not homeschooled, but COVID. Kids got comfortable, parents got comfortable. They see a pathway for their child not to engage with the community kids. We need to reach out to our constituents and say, look, what can we do better to bring your child back into our school system? Now, I know technical education, CTE, is I'm a big fan of, might be a pathway because a lot of these kids, when they graduate, what opportunities do they have to go to a vocational school? We have to start looking at that, and we have to start asking our constituents, why are we doing this? And see if we can't fix what their fears are.
Yes, sir, Mr. Nicosia.
The previous slide, that was based on our, or the number that you were shooting for, the 4,700 students. That count is based on our 10-day count, right? Am I right on that? Because I know as a teacher that's very important. That's right. My question to that is how often are the numbers ran? For instance, I just personally in my class picked up 3 new students, fresh to the area, and my colleague next door to me picked up a brother and sister, new to the area. So are there intervals of time where you all run the numbers again to see if our numbers have increased or decreased other than at the start of school?
It's a great point. Thank you for doing the 10-day count. It is a bear, right? I think we get emails, reminders. We want to count heads the first 10 days and report those heads to make sure that we're meeting enrollment. Now, the numbers I'm presenting you are a point-in-time ADM on September 30th. But a 10-day count are an early warning indicator. And you make a great point. Our metric is to pull these numbers at least monthly to see what's happening. Is it going up? Is it going down? I have some great news to share about enrollment. About 170 students arrived to our schools. They're enrolled in our schools that were not kindergartners. These are new enrollments. And those are parents, 170, that are showing confidence in our school district. They come from other school districts. They come from other places. There are also students that are returning from homeschooling. And I think it's just one of those things that we need to monitor, and also we need to remain competitive. To Mr. Drew's point, we need to look at options to say, okay, well, you decide to homeschooling, but there's no reason why we can't help you gain a skill. You know, how can we work together with the homeschooling community to better serve this community to think, okay, well, let's help you get a ASC certification, or let's help you get a cosmetology certification. Now, there are policies and processes, and we have to follow state law. There are budgetary implications with this, but I think it's worth exploring for the betterment of this community.
I got just one more question. What does the state fund you? What ADM does the state fund you? At what point in time did they say, okay, here's what you get based on the ADM you present?
So there are 2 points in time in regards to budgeting. The September 30th numbers get provided to the Virginia Department of Education in a report, and then the March 31st report. And those 2 numbers inform how much money we're getting.
So when you get a student who graduates early, they don't get counted in that second count, so you don't get the full amount for that student. So that's can impact your bottom line.
Any more questions for?
Dr. Vladu, do you know what the percentage of homeschooling is in other counties and regions around us? Like, it's looking like we're tracking 12.5 and 13.94 for next year. I'd be curious to see what those numbers are.
We have looked at those. I would like to provide those maybe in Friday notes. We actually just looked at them just 2 weeks ago. We do have a homeschooling group that we meet regularly to look at those numbers. I can tell you, we're in line with the Middle Peninsula. We're a lot like Middlesex and Matthews, King and Queen. I would say on the peninsula, York County and Newport News have recaptured a lot of students. And but I'll provide those specific details in the report by the end of this week.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Dr. Vladu on enrollment updates? If none other than Dr. Vladu, we can move on to our SOL cut scores.
All right, thank you, and we'll bring up the other presentation with SOL cut scores. All right, thank you again for the opportunity to share some great news. I know we talked about enrollment, but I want to start with some words of gratitude to our Board of Supervisors, our school board. You know, when running an organization, and this is one of the largest organizations in Gloucester, and having 850 employees, and those employees need to get paid competitive wages. They need facilities that are conducive to learning. We need transportation to be brought to school and taken home. We need HVAC that works well. And all of that has happened through the work of both boards working together, particularly the staffing. I'm very grateful to the Board of Supervisors for staffing us above the LCI. And the best we can do as a district is deliver results for our community, for our students. And we've done that. And commendations to every teacher in the district and staff member that has worked extremely hard. It's not about numbers, it's about impact on students. But we gotta measure that impact somehow. It's about more students reading better, more students computing better. And I am extremely proud to share with you that as a result of all of that work, Gloucester County Public Schools ranked first in Region 3. And just as a point of reference, from the bridge all the way to past Stafford, Northern Virginia, and everything coastal, Gloucester is #1. And what does this mean for parents? Parents, you should be proud of having students in these districts. These are opportunities, and we have the best teachers and the best district in this region, and I'm extremely proud. So a lot of gratitude that goes here. And I'll go into sharing some additional information. I know in Gloucester, having spent my career right across the bridge in 2 of those districts, a lot of people work. in Region 2, in Yorktown, in Newport News, in Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, so on and so forth. And once again, if you were to drive from North Carolina, I was just there this weekend, crossed over into on 17 into Chesapeake or Virginia Beach, and then go all the way to Maryland. The work of the teachers and staff in this district, both boards, there are only 2 other districts that are similar to us. They have a lot less poverty, and we deliver similar results. So what does this mean for our parents? Put your kid in a public school. Our kids are extremely successful. They do well, they get into college, they get a skill, they get a career, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. As a newcomer to Gloucester, I heard it firsthand about the quality of our district. And it's just not based on numbers. It's not based on reality. It's not based in facts. So again, that shows the confidence that we have in our teachers, in our staff, and in our governance here in Gloucester to deliver those kind of results. So again, I'm grateful, and I couldn't be more proud as a superintendent of this district. With that, I want to show you our academic trajectory. I share with you 2 other districts that are comparable to us, where they're staying flat. And Gloucester is outperforming them. If you think about performance, they're outperforming academically. And again, I am proud of this district and proud of the resources that I believe we spend extremely wisely here. The money we get from you, from the public, from the Board of Supervisors, is spent extremely well to deliver these kind of results. So now to the cut scores, because we get to celebrate, and then we don't rest on our laurels. What I say to our staff, let's take 24 hours, celebrate, and do it again. All right, we have kids sitting in classes, they're sitting in 3rd grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, that need us to do well. So we're going to continue to work hard to reach graduation rates, 96.2%. I am so proud of the teachers and staff at the high school. It takes everyone. You'd be amazed how many conversations are had by a security officer with students coaching them, which have nothing to do with teaching, but has everything to do with mentoring and everything to do with, helping shape young women and young men into what they are. So I'm extremely proud of the graduation rates because that is our K-12 ultimate outcome. Now, our dropout, we know the community pays anytime a child doesn't have a high school degree, and that's sort of an economic downfall, right? There are only certain jobs that you can get without a degree. And the reduction of the dropout rates is just nothing short of phenomenal, 1.36. And again, these are Virginia Department of Education numbers that should be accessible to everyone. Now, to cut scores. Why did I share that with you? Because the game has been reinvented. And this is something that happened. It's not something that will happen. It's something that happened already. So what are cut scores? Well, they define the minimum scores. If you're thinking about the SOLs, if you're 42 years or younger, you've taken an SOL in Virginia at some point. So data for 400 or higher is proficient, and for the past 26 years, that's how we lived our lives as teachers and staff and educators. Under the new revised cut score, they're below basic and basic, which are not at the level of passing. Well, they're not passing. They could be considered failing, and then proficient and advanced scores. In Virginia, and I have to be very clear with our parents about this, Virginia is one of 6 states in the country that require students to pass a test to graduate. So there are 44 other states that still have these requirements, but students are not required to graduate. I say that because when you walk through the high school, when you start 3rd grade, that testing is extremely important to get you ready to graduate, pass your English 11, pass your writing, pass your biology and Algebra 1, and then a performance-based assessment in history, social studies to walk through those doors and get that diploma. And again, you saw those numbers, 98% for students with disabilities and 96.2. So phenomenal work, but the cut scores are gonna change that because now there's a higher threshold. And that is all based on the NEEP scores. If you're familiar with National Assessment of Educational Progress, that is the educational report card. And the Virginia Department of Education and the governor and the State Board of Education have done a lot of work around this area. So why are the cut scores changing? Well, we have new standards of 23 and 24. And then the previous cut scores, which were still 400 in 2016 and 2017, the Virginia Department of Education, as well as the State Board of Education, they don't believe these represent accurate performance in reading and math as based on the NEEP score. So I want to draw your attention to the graph on the right side. If you look on that graph, you see that Virginia is at 238, which is on par with slightly higher than the mean test. So we are in the middle of the pack, right, with Pennsylvania, Indiana, and a number of other states. And we have states that do better, and we have states that do worse. So the state is calling this the honesty gap, the difference between the pass rates, cut scores, and the NEEP assessment. I want to be completely transparent with this community because I have been. I have posted to Facebook about changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game because that's what it does, and I'll demonstrate that to you. And we had over 10,000 hits on that from Gloucester. There was a high level of interest in these cut scores because they change education fundamentally for students, teachers, administrators, school boards, and the state. They are that impactful. So they're based on the NEEP score. So in Gloucester, there are only 2 classes that take the NEEP test, and they're both at one middle school. So statistically, they may not represent Gloucester, but when you look at it across the nation, I think that's what the state of education is basing those changes on. So what does this mean for our students? Well, let me just take this off the table. It should not impact graduating seniors. If you're a parent listening right now and you have a senior, like, I have not heard anything that is going to impact them. But our third graders this year, as the state is considering a 4-year phase-in model, they may be expected in reading to get a 418 rather than a 400. 426 in grade 4, 414 in grade 5, from 6th through 8th grade 413, and grade 11 420. And when we look at math, this year in third grade is 410, and geometry is 413, algebra 1 is 413. I want to put that in context. How many questions is that? Probably about 2 or 3, maybe 4 questions more than last year. But if the state adopts an incremental model, it gives us time to prepare for them. But I also want to say that as a former teacher, I would have worked with my parents and with my student the entire year just to get a student to get a 400. So that's why I don't think we can underestimate the effect even of a 410 or a 418. I also want to say this, these to some extent are unfunded mandates. And why do I say that? Because we're going to have to do more reading intervention. We're going to have to do more reading recovery. We're going to have to do more retesting. We're going to have to do more staying after. And so that's the unfunded mandate part. It has put more work on our teachers, more work on our staff, more expectations on our parents. And again, I know that I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I also don't want to keep anything from this community and be completely transparent about what these mean for this organization. So then going on, I love this picture, right? I think if you ever were in a crew, you know that war's got to enter the water at the same time. You can't work, pull in different directions. One team, one mission. We teach the curriculum objectives. We don't teach to the test. If you're in an English class or math class, there's a daily objective, and that's what we teach. When you teach those objectives and you teach them accurately, then students are prepared at the end of the year, not backwards design. I guess we could get into an argument about the chicken or the egg, but they are daily objectives. We do have to change rigor and grading, where an A may be now an A-. The state has a page. The title of that page is Raising Expectations in Virginia. And so it's, I will direct folks to that. They had an opportunity to be heard, and the State Board of Education is actually going to vote this Thursday on those, on the implementation plan. We're going to need better supports for our teachers, better supports for our students, more counseling support to meet these higher standards. But I do want to I want to finish with this, with some positive news. You may have heard that Virginia is lacking or falling behind in education. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's true based on what I see in our classrooms, based on what we see at the work of our teachers, based on what all of the data that we have, and that's really demonstrated by this chart right here. We do better than the national average on the SATs, and 51% of students in Virginia take the SATs, way larger sample statistically than the NEEP scores with 2 classes in Virginia. So if you're looking at educational progress in Virginia, our parents should be proud of putting their kids in public schools, and these kids are doing a phenomenal job. We're around 1,100 right now on the average score on the SAT, with 51% of the students taking the SAT. So what does this mean? We're doing a great job, but it's a question of alignment. If your car is going down the road and your tires are not aligned, you're probably going to spend more gas and more effort. So we're going to have to do, what do we need to take off the table, and what do we need to keep true in order to be able to meet these standards? So I am extremely optimistic and positive that we will do well with this. We faced something similar in 2000 when they came on board, 2011 with math standards, and then we came through. And I'm proud of our educators, and I do believe that we're going to make the best of the situation. I know I presented a lot of information. I believe it is pretty impactful for everyone. Any questions or comments, I would gladly entertain or do my best to answer them.
Okay, Board of Supervisors, do we have any questions for Dr. Vladu, school board?
Dr. Vladu, I think you gave us a number of how many children that graduated this past June would not have graduated under these numbers. How many was that?
So we have 40 students with disabilities that walked across the stage back on June 7th. Out of those, only 2 would have met the threshold of 472, or 479 in English. So 95% of our students with disabilities would not have graduated under these new thresholds. When we're looking at overall pass rates, they'll range anywhere between 40% to 60% pass rate. When we did the mathematical modeling, and I sent an email to our region and a couple of regions, no district would be above a 70% pass rate. And that's really the critique for the state. That's what I'm talking about, unfunded mandates. That it's just not going to be from the state, they're going to be on our localities as well, that to get out of below 70. And I wish the state did a little better job in mathematical modeling this, to look like what would it look like with pass rates. But we're mathematically modeling or doing models here in GCPS to make sure that we know what this could look like and what can we do to fare better. Again, I want to be positive. Gloucester is always going to fare well because proportionally, you saw the state rankings. This applies to the whole state. And so we're going to maintain our high-quality education as compared with other districts across the state.
Any other board comments? Yes. Mr. Brewer?
Dr. Vladu, this term honesty gap, a little scary, and I think it might merit a little emphasis at this point. The difference between the SOL cut scores performance and the NAEP scores, the National Assessment of Educational Progress scores. You mentioned in your presentation that Gloucester is represented by 2 classes. At the middle school level, 2 different schools. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit? Because I think it's important that not only this group sitting at the table, but the community who may be listening in understands exactly what those numbers mean and how we arrive at them.
Yeah, thank you. So there are 2 classes, which is approximately 50 students in GCPS that feed into those NEEP scores. I also want to say that approximately 75% of the NEEP scores in Virginia only come from 4 school districts. So again, statistically, it does not hold water, at least not for me. And I don't believe there is an honesty gap. I'm using the language that the state has used with us. We have a solid system. I think it's just a different measure and alignment. If you're asking me to jump 10 feet and you're asking me, my practice is going to be walking and I'm not used to jumping, I can't jump 10 feet. So it's a question of alignment rather than an honesty gap, but thank you for that question.
Any other questions?
If I could just make a clarifying point too. So on this Thursday, when they're voting on the phase-in. So they're going to consider whether or not, excuse me, this year is year 0 possibly, which means that the seniors won't, is that correct? Is it the seniors who won't be held to the higher score, and then next year would be, then they would, the rising seniors next year?
It's a great question because I want to clarify that. So the state code of Virginia, actually admin code, there is some language in there that new graduation requirements should start with the incoming class of 9th graders. So I think that could be a legal challenge for the state to say, well, you know, if we have this in the code of Virginia, to say, or the admin code actually, that it starts with the incoming class of 9th graders, that will give our seniors 4 years to adjust. It just depends how it's being interpreted. Is a graduation requirement a test score that's higher? I would say yes, it is. But I want to, again, for our seniors, it may not apply to, you know, it may apply with the beginning, which is the 8th grade class that's going to come into the 9th grade. But I love your question about year 0. We have asked that as superintendents, that give us a year 0, but that's for everything, including 3rd grade.
So all the scores.
That would be my request. Give us time to adjust. You know, putting our staff and our students and this community to the middle of the year change, where that child, which there are hundreds of IEP discussions and IEP meetings where people talked about a 400. And now it's the end of October, and we're talking about a 420. Well, that's changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game. That's really the definition. And so that's what we're asking for a year 0. Then there's a 5-year, and then there's a 4-year. So that's, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, no other questions? We'll move on. Dr. Vladu, you're still up with workforce development update.
I think you'll bring up the presentation with workforce, and I'm really glad to change topics. That was a heavy topic, and I appreciate everyone's understanding. So workforce development, I think, you know, thinking all of us with children and all of us when we're back in, you know, in high school, we know life takes turns, and if you could equip a child with a wage living skill, if you fix a car, build a house, fix some plumbing, that's a lifetime skill, right? And I think that the job of public schools is to do that. I want to stay, again, with some gratitude. You know, being new to Gloucester, I don't know how long I can say that after a year or two, probably not much longer, or maybe for the next 20 years. It just depends on perspective. But Gloucester kept the CTE classes, maybe not all of them. I understand there was a machine shop when I turned into our class, but we kept most of them. And that is a, you know, very, very wise thing that this community did to focus on those classes, prioritize the class, particularly in discussions like we just had together. When you're faced with all of these academic challenges, it's easy to give in and say, well, let's focus on academics. I argue not. Let's focus again on academics and career and technical education. So these are our students, and we have to provide opportunities for them, and growth in these areas is critically important, and I'm extremely proud of this community for keeping these classes. So let me tell you what we're offering, and I won't hit all of them. You could look in there for yourselves, but we're extremely proud of the carpentry and construction 1, 2, and 3. We have one of the highest NJROTC programs number-wise. That's a workforce readiness class because that gets you ready for a real job in the military. That's a job. So that's 180 students that are getting workforce readiness right in that. And agriculture, horticulture, veterinary science, so on and so forth. But great programs, and those programs are doing extremely well. Couldn't be more proud of the nursing program. We turned, I've seen, I want to say 40, up to 40 CNAs per year, medical technicians. Those numbers have grown tremendously. We have EMT that was added last year. Patient care technician, sports medicine, and culinary. Lastly, cosmetology. This is a program where there were 2 or 3 students taking it at New Horizons before it came back to GCPS, and then you can't keep kids out of it. There are about 60 of them taking those. So they're being utilized, and that's what we already have. Cybersecurity 1, 2, and 3. You want a wage living skill? Learn cybersecurity. You'll never starve. Intro to criminal justice and automotive technology, where students can get a number of ASC certifications, and you see many of them working up and down 17 in some of those automotive shops. So let's look at program capacity. And despite what you've seen with the enrollment trend, there's a renewed interest in career and technical education and certifications. So health sciences is growing, information technology is growing, transportation, logistic distribution is staying relatively the same, but we have more students that are interested in taking these classes. And here's the trends. Students enroll in all career clusters. 23, we had 24,946, 24, 25, 1063, and then this year we have 1,112 in the career clusters. If you're looking at a percentage of the student body, right, there are about 1,500 students at Gloucester High School, 75%, 3 out of 4 are enrolled in classes. There's a renewed interest in getting a living skill, a living wage, something that can help you throughout your life. And I'm really, really proud of our students for focusing, and our school counselors for pushing these programs, and for our teachers for teaching these programs, teaching these classes, and doing it well. Now, let's look also at work-based learning, for thinking about a job, an internship, a mentorship, work-based learning experience. We go from 90 in 23, 146 in 24, and 175 in 2025. These numbers are important because this is how high schools are now held accountable. The accountability framework looks at employment, enrollment, and enlistment. And it's likely that the high school is going to be labeled as a distinguished school because of these numbers I'm sharing you. In addition to academics, that's how high schools are being accredited across Virginia. So again, very, very proud of these numbers. Now, so let's look at New Horizons. This is the CTE enrollment, not special education. We have a handful of folks in building construction, 2 in welding, dental assistant 2, cybersecurity and operation, HVAC 1, 4 in electrical engineering, and then plumbing and pipe fitting 2, and early childhood education. I think these numbers indicate to us that our students would not like to get on the bus, cross the bridge. I think if it's right here in our backyard, those numbers would look like those previous graphs. But that's a tremendous amount of time spent away from their school. And I'll take some questions. Yep.
So with regard to the previous slide, are those mentorships that students have with people outside of school, or are these like summer jobs, or how are these students getting these mentorships?
I want to thank our community. If you're thinking about, there's a couple of dealers on 17 that take our kids. There are a couple of HVAC places that take our kids, our students. I know the hospital, Riverside, takes our students. They're all over Gloucester, so that's a great point. I'm so grateful to our businesses for taking it, because these are real-world experiences.
So do these mentorships occur during the school day, or are they after school, on weekends, and are they basically paid or non-paid kind of job types of things?
They're all over the place. So some of them are paid, some of them are unpaid, some of them are during the summer, and some are during the day, and some of them are after hours. So whenever we can we'll take it and count it. But yes, they're all over, and we want to provide those options. So I want to go back to, boy, it seems like forever ago. You know, one day in the high school is like a week in the real world. This was back in, thank you. Well, I think, yeah, this may have been 12, right? The 12th of September. The 25th is when you got it. The next trip is on the 25th. But I believe on the 12th or 13th of September, we went there with a trip with, you see Mr. Hodges, Delegate Hodges there. We had several county administrators from Middlesex. I believe it's the Middle Peninsula Economic Development, or Middle Peninsula Commission, who organized the trip. But I was invited, and I was the only superintendent to go on this trip, and I felt a little bit like a fish out of water going to Danville. Danville is a model where they transform their workforce development. They integrated K-12 into adult ed, and they're so successful that they basically, this center, if you're looking at the bottom center, what they do currently is folks from all over Virginia, actually from all over the country, go there to learn about career, technical education, and workforce development. So we visited there to see the advanced manufacturing, but also it was integrated from the electrical programs and middle school programs. On the top right, you'll see welding simulators. Middle school students were laying beads virtually to learn if they like welding. And our young ladies, I learned, their young ladies did the best. They had the best welding beads out of anybody, but they learned through those simulators, and they did a great job in exposing students to careers and building those skills and certifications that they're so successful that the United States Navy, I believe, has invested $60 million in welding and manufacturing program. And my question was, well, where's the water in Danville? There's no deep water, but that's sort of a model of economic development that when both the county governments and K-12 work together and they develop a highly skilled workforce, it attracts economic development to the region. I also have to be completely transparent. They have some tobacco money that Gloucester doesn't have. So there's one way it's going to look in Danville, and our funding structure is very, very different. But it was exciting to see the possibilities. And again, I want to thank Ms. Steele for inviting me on that trip. Then we followed up with, I believe, Mr. Drew, this is the 25th. And we went more like to a place in Culpeper. This is Culpeper CT High School, and we visited regional center, not a regional, that's actually only serves Culpeper, and they believe they stated serves about 400 some students out of a total high school population of around 2,900 students. So that was extremely informative because, they had welding, they had firefighter 1 and 2, and, facilities were conducive to teaching those skills, and the students were just phenomenal, and the administration, and there was a whole culture about gaining real-world skills and certifications, and doing just a great job with everything. A couple of mechanics, actually, they're working on the Volkswagen Bug. By the way, it's difficult. If you ever own a Volkswagen, they're really hard to work on. Everything breaks. They turn to us and they explain exactly what we're doing. We're removing these clamps. We have the specialized tools to remove the clamps. We're changing the hoses. They talk to us like tech, so they're also focusing on customer service skills that if you're taking your car over, you could explain to the customer what exactly they're doing. So it was a great trip, and we learned a lot about how to serve students, at least what a vision for possible CTE growth can look like. So the reason we visited, as we think about next steps, we already have conversations through the program of studies of adding firefighter 1 and 2 under the current program. Criminal justice and corrections, we know that the corrections facilities are hard to staff. And criminal justice, we have a teacher that's certified to teach that. We'd like to add that. That should not be much of a cost. That may be even cost neutral. And the GoTech Virginia, we want to work with Middle Peninsula to fund that through a grant. This is the program where it teaches middle school kids, exposes them to welding, manufacturing, and all of that. And again, we'll take advantage of some regional grants, and we're working with Middle Peninsula to make that happen. For 27, 28, there are other jobs out there, the other career strands and career venues that we could look at teaching: plumbing, HVAC, everyone's got a heat pump, 2 or 3 heat pumps, welding, and electrician. I did visit, as part of this with Dr. Migas, we did visit Glenn's, and they do have some welding there, but the capacity is maybe they have a total of 6 to 8 stalls, and there's just not a lot of capacity, but they're working on that. So as I share this information, I do have one question, and I'll turn it over to our boards for discussion. How does Gloucester expand workforce development programs to include high demand and high paying careers such as HVAC, plumbing, welding, and electrician certifications. So I'll turn it over, particularly folks that went on the trip, or if you didn't go on a trip, you have questions about the trip, but I'll turn it over for discussion.
Okay. Any discussion?
He always pointed at me. So, folks, let me tell you something. Going to up there, can you go back to some of your slides up there with the pictures? Did we have any from our trip?
Yep.
Yep. So let me tell you, this was amazing. But it started in the community. I talked to the director and I said, how did you actually engage? And he told us basically we polled the community. What do you want to see in our CTE courses? And the community responded. Not only did they respond with the funding for building this facility, but the in-depth of engagement. They have an all-volunteer fire department up there. The fire department buys the equipment for the kids to go through firefighting, and then when they graduate, they become part of the volunteer fire department. That right there shows you how engaged the community is in getting these kids an education that's going to carry them through their life. And the culinary, I like the fact that the fire kids that were going through firefighting were actually flip-flopping over to the EMT course, and then they would go back to the fire, and EMT were going to the firefighting, and it was amazing because a lot of that training covers on both sides, right? You got a lot of overlap. They had CAD, computer-aided drafting there. It was amazing. And they actually had a young lady who was in the CAD, I believe it was. She was actually helping the teacher teach. So I can tell you that if you want people to come to this county to bring their kids back to school, we give them, the kids, the opportunity to find out what they want to do in their life. And I'm going to switch gears here when I talk about, go back to your next slide, next one. The GoTech Virginia Middle School. How many times you talk to a young person, what do you want to do? I don't know. The GoTech Virginia, the investigation career course, allows kids to go in and try different things that might spark an interest. Then, if they're interested in it, they can follow through with that. But, you know, we have a fantastic CTE program already, but we need to move forward and do more. And what I would like to present to both boards, I would like to present to the community that we establish a working group with both boards, community leaders, and to explore our expansion of our CTE courses. And I'll leave that up to you guys whether or not y'all want to do it, but I'm 100% on that's what I would like to see happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Any questions or comments? Mr. Gibson?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. This is very helpful. A question I had on both facilities, were they serving only that high school, or were they serving a regional source of students?
Great question. So there were several high schools in Orange County and Culpeper, and so the students would be transported there, but they work all within one county. It was not a regional program, but there were several high schools.
And how about in Danville? Were they, is this one facility serving multiple high schools, or?
They had such a depth there. They had programs within the school. They had a regional program and in the high school. I think we could have spent probably 5 days to look at the workforce development program in Danville, but they had just about every single model imaginable.
Okay. Well, I'm familiar with Danville. I have family in Danville. There is water there, the Dan River. But I find it interesting that this program is so successful there because they have had significant investment in this area, and for many decades, this was a very impoverished area with the exception of tobacco. And so now, just recently, Governor Youngkin announced, and it's in the works, there's a $1.35 billion plant that is coming to the Pittsylvania County, where Danville is located, that's going to employ 2,000 people. So clearly, this workforce development was attractive to those who wanted to invest in the county, and I think that would be significant for our county as well.
So, I like to echo Mr. Drew's comments. I think, this has been a subject of conversation in a number of our joint meetings. Is there an ability to, for kids that are moving to this, kind of field, a course that teaches them business sense, like how do you run a business, how do you start a business? Because a lot of these kids probably may go independent, but jumping into their own business could be quite a hurdle. And I'm just wondering if there's an interest in actually having something where kids learn how to start their own business, which includes, money issues.
Mr. Nicosia?
I think I can answer that for you, Dr. Orth. Come to my class at 7:40 in the morning. First class I teach is entrepreneurship. So yes, that is big. However, I would volunteer to join a work group, but I would encourage both boards to meet with through the proper channels, but to meet with your CTE group, because these are discussions that we have as teachers almost on the daily. How can we expand our program to service all major interest of our students? We have students, Dr. Vladu, who want to be plumbers. We have students that want to be electricians. We have students that want to do marine maintenance. I talk to kids all the time about programs that we don't have. Back many years ago, when Mr. Andersen and I were students at Gloucester High School, we had a welding shop with a welding teacher. So, and that is one thing that we're talking about. So I think that as we develop whatever we're going to develop, I think it would behoove us as members, not necessarily something let's talk about daily, but it would behoove the rest of the members here to engage with your CTE teachers and listen to some of the ideas that we're hearing from our student body. We have exceptional teachers in exceptional programs, but we have students waiting at the ready to say, oh, I can take that class at the high school. I don't have to go to New Horizons. And so one of the places that I visited, and I would encourage you all, if you haven't done so already, one of the places that I was fortunate to visit not a little while back was the Northern Neck Regional Technical Center, which if you've never been in there, I would highly suggest you take a trip. That services the Northern Neck. I was invited there, went there, and I enjoyed my visit. But I really think that we need to invest in the trades. And we invest in the trades by adding to our already successful programs. But here is the biggest takeaway from what I hear, what we talk about on a daily basis. The dollars that are going over the bridge that we could be investing in our kids. And not that we're not investing in our kids, because the dollars going over the bridge are going to New Horizons, right? I understand that. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to service the same kids right here in Gloucester County and get to the place where we can offer it to Matthews, and we can offer it to Middlesex, and we can offer it to King and Queen, and maybe get to the place where we are a regional place, where we are not only taking care of the kids in our community, but the students of the Middle Peninsula.
Thank you, Mr. Nicosia, because I agree with you 100%. And I think that what we learned in Culpeper was when they started this program, they really thought it out well. They had that committee, and the committee then sent surveys to the parents, to the students, to the employers, and they compiled all that information. And based on that, they were able to decide what they were going to build and how they're going to build it and what courses were going to be offered. And they continue to do that because some classes they've dropped and they've started new courses. So that's a very fluid, ongoing kind of living program that really addresses beautifully matching students to employers, because that's what they do. Every student that finishes that program has employment when they walk out the door, and they make sure of it. They all had jobs. I mean, that's the woman who was, I can't remember her title, but that was her job, was to place the students. And so it would be wonderful, and that was one of the, reasons we went there, was to look at what it would take to expand our program. Are we talking about just keeping it within the confines of the building that we currently have, or are we actually maybe thinking if this is something of interest to everybody in the community, there might be another structure involved there. So we would love to pursue this, to develop this committee and pursue it.
Ms. Steele?
I just want to say I agree with all the things that are being stated. I'd also throw in that we learned recently that Louisa County is going through the same process. They're already ahead of where we are, so there's another example of a new facility that's being built that would maybe be a little bit more relatable than Danville was. Danville joined in with their community college, and it's just a massive, I think it's like 6 buildings on their campus, or 7 or something like that. It's exciting when you want to do something new, but it's even more exciting when you might have the money to do it. And this is where I think we have such a great opportunity in Gloucester. Depending upon if this committee goes forward and what the committee recommends and the boards pass, it could be a regional facility, it could be a facility here that's open in the evenings for adult use that RCC comes down and runs. I mean, there's so many different ways. I know the other counties, King and Queen and Middlesex, are very interested in a regional program. There's some pluses and minuses to that. I think when we talk about the capacity, that you may not want to give up those slots, so it might be, sure, you can have it on Saturdays, or something else. But I think we probably have enough students here to fill it, a facility just with Gloucester. And when you look at those numbers of how few people are going to New Horizons and the amount of money that's going over there and reappropriating that for a better return on investment, I think it just makes a lot of sense. And I know I had a son who was asked to go over there for like the next year of the CAD program. He didn't want to go across the river. A lot of those kids. I had not heard that comment about how many when cosmetology was over there versus here. I mean, that's proof of that too. So I'm very excited about what we've learned and support it and think it has great potential.
So I'm just wondering, what are the steps here? Any step we need to take tonight to launch this, or? Sure.
I just want to make one comment real quick. This is not just this is for all kids too, even kids with disabilities. This is part of their workforce going into the world and being able to take care of themselves. Some of these positions and some of these jobs they can do, and we're going to help them get there. And I think this is the step we take forward to help those individuals as well.
If I can make a suggestion, I think this really falls underneath the school board to create the organization and then ask for representatives from the board to join. And then I know we had talked about different community reps or business reps, and obviously people who are in the profession already. So the school board could maybe work out how you want to limit it, but I think it would be starting with you all.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Totally agree. Mr. Anderson?
So what you just described already exists and it has a name. It's the CTE committee. So why would we form another committee? I mean, to me, it fits. I'm looking at Drew as the other school board member. It fits well within the purview and the mission statement of that committee.
Well, there you go.
True.
And it includes everybody, so we have.
Does it include board of supervisors reps?
No, so I would say
We could add
those.
I would also go one step further, Troy. I think we need to have student representatives as well on this board.
And business.
And
community.
businesses and
Yeah,
parents.
That's a big
Got all
part
that.
of the
Okay, got
CTE.
it.
Ashley just whispered to me too.
All right,
Maybe,
done.
maybe a subcommittee of the CTE committee. But yeah, we can work that out because we already have a tremendous amount of business partners that are on that.
Well, that's
Right, and I think that subcommittee could help drive this in the direction of development versus what you guys currently do now. This is an important tool that we could use to develop a stronger foothold, because there are probably some businesses out there that we're missing that might want to take part in this, that are looking for this qualified candidate that we could probably get qualified in high school or shortly thereafter.
And whether or not, excuse me for jumping in, businesses represented on the board, they would still be polled. I mean, I think that one of the, community outreach and polling is huge. Information gathering.
Since 2006, when I joined this board, this has been the hope that I have always had, that we could have something like this. I saw kids, when my kids were coming up, that wanted to go and do some of these things at New Horizons, but they only took a certain amount of kids, so they were limited, so they didn't get to participate. The only thing that I would add to what Mr. Chriscoe and Mr. Nicosia said is I envision our businesses playing a big role in growing our kids the way they want them grown in the business world for their particular, whether it's plumbing or air conditioning or whatever, that they play a role in that in some way. I don't know how much they'd want to play in that, but to come in and be visible people in front of our students that actually own these businesses, I think that that's what I have always envisioned, that our community would get really involved in this. And I would love to be able to get to a point where we can get away from New Horizons. Nothing wrong with New Horizons, but I think we could offer so much for the communities around us that would be grateful to bring them to Gloucester rather than having to go further away.
Any more questions, comments? Dr. Vladu? Anyone?
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. Okay, moving on. Gloucester County Public School Capital Improvement Project Update, Mr. Hartley.
Thank you, sir. It might be kind of difficult to follow the excitement of CTE road trips and the expansion of CTE programs, but it might springboard into long-range capital planning, and I do not have the expansion of any facilities for the expansion of CTE programs in this year's proposal, but I can expect that to come in years coming up. I'm going to start with a couple pictures, and Sarah Elliott is back in my office, so it's been a big help. I welcome her back. She actually helped out with this, so it's in the same order that our projects are in, but I thought some pictures might be helpful. So if I could go through pictures first and then go through projects, certainly we can make reference back to pictures. So with that said, the first set of projects that will be on this year's submission, or that are on this year's submission, are roof replacements. This is a project that's been beyond the 5-year mark in the last several submissions, but roof warranties are getting ready to expire. Keep in mind, we're thinking about 5 years ahead at this point. And some are, whether the warranty's expired or not, are showing issues. And you can see in some of these pictures of one of our current elementary schools on rainy days. Another project that has actually previously been on our CIP submissions is the soffit and brickwork here at T.C. Walker. Please keep in mind that we're watching growth just as much as the county is watching growth. We know that, and we don't anticipate it at this point, but if student population grows at a rate larger than what we anticipate, or larger than capacity that we have at our current buildings, we know that's potential one use for this building. You can see that these issues have just become worse over the last several years, and regardless of the purpose of this building, whether we use it for another elementary school or whether we use it for a CTE center or what have you, There are issues, structural issues you can see on the right that we'll need to address. HVAC equipment's not the prettiest to look at, but HVAC equipment, I think I've mentioned to boards before, will always be on our CIP submissions. The number of units we have across this division or exceed the thousands mark, so they don't last but so long. I'll go into ASHRAE standards when we do get to our summary page. This body top fire alarm system is a new project, new submission this year. I will tell you that this has been piecemealed over the years as additions have gone on, as we've added rooms and wings and things. The panel we have functional at the moment, but the wiring and everything else needs to be replaced. It's parts of it are as old as the building. School bus replacement, again, not to repeat myself, but school bus replacement will always be on the capital improvement plan because they age out. And I'll go to the standard of 15 years, 200,000 miles. You can see that we have exceeded the standard on this particular bus. It's not our best. It is a 05, and you can see we've gone well above the 200,000 mile mark. Pictures of casework. Again, another project that's just kind of been hovering on long-range capital submission. Doesn't always receive the highest ranking. Some casework in our buildings are original to our buildings, as you can see in this case, but we are focusing on Achilles Elementary School and then Petsworth Elementary School. Also, fairly new to CIP submission are our marquee signs. These are examples of buildings that actually have them. We have buildings that don't even have them. And the ones that we do have are old, broken, difficult to update. You can see the antiquated lettering system that we do use if we can get the doors open. Oftentimes we have to get our maintenance crews out there to either get them open or get them closed or a little bit of both. Gym floor refinishing, again, another new project. We have a product called Grand Wood on a lot of our gym floors. It's actually a very good product. Why they don't make it anymore, I don't know. But it's been good for our gymnasiums. We have them at several, but they do need to be refinished periodically to keep up with them. Replacing them would be quite costly. And then we're to our major construction projects, the GHS Sports Complex. We modified that a little bit last year when we did the actual field house with state construction dollars, but still a rather extensive project where we would address refinishing the track. Turf field is part of that. We look at new lighting, resurfacing the tennis courts, get an assessment of bleachers, light poles, and things like that. And then lastly on the list that we'll talk about this evening is the body top 1973 renovation that really has some ADA compliance issues. If we touch it, we have to address those. And then this is also the wing of the building that has the exterior doors as well as the interior doors. If we address that safety concern, then we have to look at sprinkling the system and then some other finish works with those projects. So before I get into the numbers aspect, are there any questions about any of the pictures that we've covered this evening?
No question, but Mr. Hartley. The marquee, Page Middle School, is there anything in the future for marquee at Page Middle School?
I'm getting ready to show you. It's
Okay.
on the list.
All right, good.
Yes, Page would be a priority. Really at this point right now, not to jump ahead too far ahead, but buildings that don't have them would be a priority for marquees. And then, again, the rest of them are really at this point in disrepair. I mean, between holding up the plexiglass with broomsticks, and again, that's just the ones we can get open, and some we can't even get closed back once we do get them open. It's not part of the agenda? I thought what we loaded earlier with the summary page. I believe there were some hard copies floating around.
It's in the main pack. We have it in the main pack. Yeah.
It's in the main package. I have a copy, thank you, though. So if we can
It's in this one, in the capital improvements.
reference the paper packet.
I didn't get it in this one. I'll share with you, we can share. I didn't get it.
You need a magnifying glass.
Okay.
Good gosh.
I know, I was gonna say.
Coming up, thank you.
I got focus.
Well, hopefully everybody at least has a partner to share with at this point. I'll try to go through these there we go. All right, thank you. Make it bigger.
Thank you.
There we go.
Much better.
Okay, I'll jump right in. I know I gave some explanation of parts of these projects as we went through the pictures, but roofing replacement, again, warranties are coming, are expiring. And even in that case, either we have current issues or anticipate issues soon after based on the assessment of roofs. You can see from those numbers that we pushed out starting any work recommended at fiscal year 2028, but there's nothing cheap about a roof. Roofs are quite expensive, but those are the estimates that we have for Abingdon, Achilles, Bethel, and T.C. Walker. I showed you the soffit and brickwork here at the Thomas Calhoun Walker Education Center. Those pictures show what kind of issues we have to address, the aestheticness of it, but there's also structural issues that need to be addressed, and that price tag tends to just creep back up. We don't like to put any project ahead of a school project, but at this point, it's really needs to be addressed and have some urgency placed to it. The fire system, I talked about the amount of wiring replacement that would have to happen at Body Todd Elementary. Again, cost estimate on replacing the entire fire system at Body Todd would be about $200,000. And then HVAC replacement, you'll notice that Body Todd and Petsworth are back on that list, and the explanation for that, again, appreciate that from the previous CIP submission, those projects being funded, but the ASHRAE standards are at 15 to 17 years. Those pieces of equipment that are now on the CIP submission weren't of that age when we submitted previously. So those pieces of equipment are coming up. And again, HVAC equipment replacement is something that will always be on the CIP submission. Bus replacement program, if I could express the school system's appreciation of funding of school buses, it's allowed us to really start to catch up. That 15-year, 200,000-mile standard is still in place, but when we first started having this conversation, we were pushing about 40%. I think we're down below, a little bit below 30% now. And we have decreased the number of school buses that we've had from like 5 or 6 years ago. We're well over 100. We're down to just under 80 now. So we're able to increase our efficiencies, able to increase our recruitment and retention of drivers with more efficient routes, air-conditioned buses, safety features on buses. So I will tell you, buses have gotten a whole lot more expensive, but these big grabs at the replacement cycle help us to catch up, and I think a couple more cycles will get us closer. And with those more recent purchases, we're at over 60% of our fleet now that are climate control. In casework, we base this on price per linear foot. Again, a little bit more expensive than the quotes that were for last year, but Achilles is about $85,000 and Petsworth would be about $140,000. And marquee signs, we had to base those prices on what we're currently pricing out, which is the high school marquee. Situations different per building, per site, whether they have electricity out there or not, or whether code allows us to have a lit sign or a digital sign or what have you. So numbers aren't perfectly exact, but again, Page Middle School would be a priority on that list if it were funded. Gym floor refinishing, we don't anticipate a lot of price change in that across the next several years, but it's about $50,000 to refinish one of those grand wood gym floors. Asphalt sealant, we did not put a price to, but if y'all recall, the asphalt projects across our school sites were approved several years ago. The recommendation, I believe, is 5 to 7 years to seal those up. So that's coming up, and we estimate close to about $50,000 per site, depending on the size of the site. And then the large construction projects, again, high school sports complex. We talked about everything that was contained in the proposal for that project, and then also the 73 wing at Bodytide Elementary School. So with that said, I will stop and see if there's questions or further explanation that I can provide.
Any questions? Mr. Drew?
Thank you, ma'am. What's the status on the fire system at Bodytide?
It's currently functioning.
How old is it?
I'd have to get back to you exactly how old it is. Some of the wiring is, again, I don't want to give you a year. Some of the wiring is much older than the current panel that's in there.
But you think it'll work?
Right now, yeah, we have Johnson Controls out. Actually, we had a problem with the panel. They put a new panel in, but the whole system needs to be replaced. But the panel they have right now, they have functioning.
I'm kind of concerned about that. Like, really concerned. I think that should be number one taken care of, because fire systems, I don't want to take a chance with that. I think that's should be number one if you ask me, but I don't, I know we need a lot of this other stuff, but a fire system in a school with young kids, that to me is up there. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? I see your point. Appreciate you bringing it up.
All right. Thank you all
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hartley. Okay, coming up next is discussion of meeting schedule and resolution setting FY 2027 Gloucester County Budget Calendar. Ms. Steele.
Yes, Ms. Cronin has put together the request that the board made for the budget calendar for next year, and there's a resolution for your consideration. It moves things back on the budget, or the budget calendar as requested, and also includes cooperative dates similar to what we have right now of March and October for the joint meetings with the school board. So if there are no changes recommended, we would ask that you approve it with the resolution.
Okay. Board of Supervisors, any questions, comments? It's been moved and second. Moved and second. Ms. Steele?
Dr. Orth? Yes. Mr. Hutson? Yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bazzani is absent. Mr. Nicosia? Yes. Mr. Gibson? Yes. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Discussion of Gloucester County Public School legislative priorities for 2026 General Assembly session. Dr. Vladu, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Madam Chair Arsenovic, you have this in front of you as far as that time of the year when both VAS as well as VSBA release legislative priorities. And as things have it sometimes, there's a great deal of alignment between both of these organizations. we believe these legislative priorities are reasonable. I'm just going to highlight several. It's in front of you. I'll start with the second bullet for governance and control, as well as budgeting. We're asking the state to fully fund adequate resources for implementation. Take the discussion we just had about cut scores. That should be funded. When I asked this question, what funding is going to be appropriated to cover some of the costs for additional reading specialists, so on and so forth. To my knowledge, to our knowledge, there are no plans. There's nothing in the proposed legislation to actually address the cut scores. Also think our discussion of CTE and possible additional facilities to house some of those programs, to dedicate lottery and casino revenues to fund school construction and maintenance, and provide direct state funding for high-quality work-based learning programs. You saw those numbers. And our students need to be in the workplace to get those skills, and sometimes it costs money to get kids out there and programs and staff, and we would like, again, to focus on those priorities. I would also want to make our public aware that there are proposed changes to the SOL administration. What is being proposed is that SOL are administered in the last 2 weeks of school. Well, that would not give our schools a lot of flexibility. Sometimes you need additional time. We know we're required to remediate before we put kids back in the front of that test. And so, again, we are asking to have more flexibility there. Well, one other item is there is a legislation that's being proposed to count the SOL at 10% of the final grade. And again, to put them grade level on a test is particularly challenging and one-time experience, where students one day, one taking. So that's, again, needs to be looked at. Lastly, I'll hit another area with dual enrollment at the high school. We have grown tremendously with dual enrollment. Those numbers have doubled and tripled. These are students that are actually taking college-level courses at Gloucester High School. We have, last time I checked, we have a couple hundred of students taking those courses, and currently that is actually free. So parents can send their kids to school, earn up to an associate's degree for credits. So we're asking to maintain that and actually expand that, because it's good for our school students and good for our community. So again, I didn't want to be redundant and read all of them, but those are of particularly importance as we talk about tonight's presentation and how it relates to funding. And I'll turn it over if anyone wanted to highlight any other areas, but those are the ones that that I wanted to highlight tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Vladu. Do any board members have any comments or questions? Mr. Brewer?
Quick question. About the fifth bullet down, it reads, remove caps on non-personal cost assumptions within the SOQ model. Could you explain that? I'm not sure I'm totally clear on what we mean by that.
Great question. So the standards of quality prescribe requirements in Virginia. Staffing requirements we're most familiar with because we come to the board and we say, well, these are SOQ cover positions. Then take class size, for example. We're very familiar with those. However, I think a lot of folks may need to understand or to look a little deeper into that. The SOQs, we complete a compliance report. I want to say it's 15 pages of rules and regulations that public schools have to prescribe to. Not all of them are staff related. Like, for instance, deliver a careers investigation course. Well, that may require materials and resources. It goes back to the unfunded mandate. If the state is going to ask us to do something, localities should not incur the cost for all of that. So there are a lot of associated things that come with the SOQs that are not staff related, and we believe the state should fund those.
I think personnel might be the word we're looking for, but yes, I understand.
Yeah.
If I could, any other questions or comments? I would just like to reiterate, thank you for making these points, that yes, the VSBA and the VAS legislative priorities do line up really well. And I just wanted to point out that Virginia remains like around 41st in the country for per pupil spending. And so that we're all familiar with the JLARC study, which really pointed that out, that this funding formula needs to be really, revised so that the burden isn't disproportionately on localities as it currently is. And again, we are faced with so many underfunded or unfunded mandates having to do with testing. And you're often then having, this state will have to ask for waivers on that, so it just begs the question of, why, perhaps that particular mandate needs to be revisited. But that's it, but thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Any other discussion? Not any further discussion, we'll move on. Ms. Steele, discussion of request for input of county legislative priorities.
Yes, you have tonight a copy, a draft for you that will be brought up again for final, hopefully adoption at the next meeting, and put red ink on everything that was changed from the 25 agenda, with the exception that I didn't put the things that we decided to omit that had already occurred. They're not shown as strikeout. There are a couple of new things I wanted to highlight. First of all, was very surprised that VACO did not have the revenue shortfall issue brought up on their legislative agenda, and neither did the Hampton Roads PDC's draft legislative agenda. And when we met last week, which Mr. Bazzani was there, and the whole group brought that point up, and it was decided that when that draft comes back in November, that item will be added to the HR PDC's legislative agenda. And I would hope Middle Peninsula might add it to theirs as well. So that's one that you all have expressed, and as you read the request for action, then on the back page it talks, there's a draft, and these are all for your consideration of what you'd like to do, but I just drafted more about the problem and not a solution, because the General Assembly may want to look at a JLARC study. They may want to have legislation that reimburses a certain portion, but they're not addressing it at all. And so that's the way I put it in draft. The second one has been discussed kind of lightly, and I went ahead and put it for your consideration as an actual action request to increase the funding for a gateway at the base of the Coleman Bridge with the removal of the toll plaza. That was something that our delegate and senator and delegates, that I talked with them about that last year, and I think there might be some support for that. The next new one is one that deals with the complaints that we've had about the parking lot at Gloucester Point Beach and the boat landing. And I did make contact with the head of the capital programming, because as you all know, and the number of complaints that we received, that they still have not gone out and fixed the potholes. And I went and inspected it after the big storm, the nor'easter, and they were filled with water and eroding worse. And I was glad to know that in placing the call, that got the gentleman to come down to Gloucester and look at it himself. And he has agreed that they will be doing something, and he realized it was bigger than just a little bit of hot mix or whatever that needed to be put out there. There was no absolute promise of what's going to happen with the redoing the entire parking lot, and the boat landing, which is what they were supposed to be doing, and that our funds were taken for a project after a dam broke. So I thought it best to just state this in here, that we want them to be fully funded to maintain those landings. Yes, sir.
We need to make sure we clarify that it's the public landings that fall under their purview, because there are a lot that that DWR is not responsible for in the county. So I don't want the folks in the county to think we're going to try to maintain all public landings when not all of them fall under DWR, but we need to make sure. And then on the other page, it looks like something may have gotten cut off.
Getting ready to say grammatically.
We cut a line off when we added it somewhere. There's the rest of that sentence is cut off in number 4. We're supposed to make sure we get that added back.
Okay, we will, and I will also rephrase it so that it states, because it's not just the Gloucester Point Beach one is maintained by them, but the ones that are their responsibility.
Correct. Just so we have the ones that are their responsibility. Because I would hate for someone to think they're going to come fix another landing that DWR has nothing to do with.
Right. Good point. And the last new one is something that the board hasn't openly talked about, but several of you I have talked with, and we've had a couple of meetings with Hampton University in the past. I think everyone's more than well aware that the external work is done, but Hampton has asked us for political support to try to get funding and to look at a feasibility study that would really say how can this building be sustainable economically, whether that becomes a retreat center, whether it becomes a rental office, however, but also does the due diligence on the historic value of the property. So asking for a special allocation for a feasibility study. And so if the board can take glances through, if you catch anything else that you want me to address right away, just send me an email. Otherwise, if you've got corrections ready at the next meeting, love to see you adopt it and take it to VACO with you. And that's all I have. Thank you.
That's all I have, Ms. Steele. Okay, moving on. Any more supervisor discussion?
Any further discussion by school board members on any topic? I think we're good.
Okay, we have no closed meeting?
No closed meeting.
You want to adjourn your board?
All right. I can entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we adjourn?
I got it. Okay, we'll give Ms. Parker the first and Mr. Anderson the second. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, Board of
Any opposed?
Supervisors. We're adjourned.